Hello everyone. Welcome to CellBlock Chronicles. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share our content.
The small town of Harrington had always been a quiet place, where everyone knew everyone, and the biggest news typically involved the local high school football team. But that peace was shattered when a string of brutal murders began to plague the community. The victims, all women in their early 30s, were found in various secluded spots around town, each bearing the same gruesome marks, their throats slit and a red ribbon tied around their necks. The town was in a state of panic, and the police were under immense pressure to find the killer. They focused their investigation on Alex Turner, a local handyman with a troubled past. Alex had moved to Harrington 2 years ago, trying to escape a dark history of drug addiction and petty crime. When the first body was found, the police noticed that Alex had been seen near the crime scene, fixing a fence for a local farmer. That alone wasn't enough to incriminate him, but as the bodies began to pile up, more and more circumstantial evidence seemed to point in his direction. Detective Rachel Morgan was assigned to the case. She was new to Harrington, having moved from the city to escape the chaos of urban crime. Rachel was determined to prove herself, and she quickly zeroed in on Alex as the prime suspect. She was thorough in her investigation, meticulously documenting every piece of evidence. The second victim, Laura Collins, was found in a wooded area behind the local library. Her body had been there for days before a hiker stumbled upon it. The police found traces of motor oil and cigarette butts near the scene. Alex, who smoked and often worked on cars, quickly became their focus. A witness even claimed to have seen his truck parked near the library on the night Laura was killed. Rachel brought Alex in for questioning. He was nervous but cooperative, his eyes darting around the interrogation room. "Where were you on the night of September 14th?" Rachel asked, her voice steady and calm. "I was home," Alex replied, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. "I don't go out much at night." "Can anyone verify that?" Rachel pressed. Alex hesitated. "No, I live alone." The lack of an alibi was damning, but Rachel needed more. She obtained a search warrant for Alex's home and truck. Inside, they found a red ribbon similar to the ones found on the victims. Alex claimed it was from an old craft project he had worked on with his sister's kids, but the police weren't convinced. Further investigation revealed that Alex had a minor criminal record from his youth, including a restraining order filed by an ex-girlfriend. This added fuel to the fire, making it easy for the townspeople to believe he was capable of such heinous acts. The media quickly picked up the story, and Alex's face was plastered across the news as the prime suspect. Rachel was conflicted. While the evidence seemed to point to Alex, something about it felt too convenient. She decided to dig deeper, reviewing all the details of the case and interviewing people who knew Alex. She spoke with his sister, Emma, who was adamant about his innocence. "Alex has his flaws, but he's not a killer," Emma insisted, tears streaming down her face. "He's been working so hard to turn his life around. Please, you have to believe me." Rachel wanted to believe her, but the pressure from her superiors and the public was immense. She continued to follow the leads, hoping to find a definitive piece of evidence that would either convict Alex or prove his innocence. Rachel's determination led her to re-examine the timeline and details of each murder. She visited the crime scenes again, walking the paths the victims might have taken, trying to get into the mind of the killer. It was during one of these visits that she noticed something odd about the placement of the bodies. They seemed to form a rough circle around the town center. Poring over maps late into the night, Rachel realized that the murders followed a pattern, radiating outward in a spiral. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. The killer was methodical, precise, and likely someone with a deep understanding of the town's layout. One night, as Rachel was going through the case files yet again, she noticed something odd. The locations of the murders formed a rough pattern, but there was one area that had been overlooked. An abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was a place known for shady activities, but it hadn't been searched because it was outside the usual range of the murders. Rachel decided to investigate the warehouse herself. It was late, and the building was dark and foreboding. As she moved through the dusty halls, She found a small office that looked like it had been used recently. There were cigarette butts in the ashtray, the same brand found near Laura Collins' body. Rachel's heart raced as she realized she might have stumbled upon the real killer's hideout. She found a hidden door leading to a basement. Descending the creaky stairs, she discovered a makeshift shrine covered with photos and clippings about the murders. In the center was a photograph of Alex with a red ribbon pinned to it. Rachel's mind raced. Someone had been framing Alex all along. As she took photos of the scene, she heard footsteps above. Her heart pounded in her chest as she hid behind a stack of crates. A figure entered the basement humming a tune. Rachel watched in horror as the person moved towards the shrine and began to rearrange the photos. It was Tom Watson, the town's beloved pharmacist and a longtime resident of Harrington. Tom had always been seen as a pillar of the community, a kind and generous man. The realization that he was the true killer was almost too much to bear. Rachel knew she had to act fast before he noticed her. She quietly called for backup, keeping her eyes on Tom the entire time. The police arrived within minutes, bursting into the warehouse and arresting Tom on the spot. He was taken into custody, where he quickly confessed to the murders. Tom revealed that he had harbored a deep hatred for women due to a traumatic experience in his past. He had meticulously planned each murder, choosing Alex as the perfect scapegoat to take the fall. The red ribbon, the cigarette butts, the motor oil, all of it had been planted to incriminate Alex. Tom had even gone so far as to follow Alex and plant evidence around his home and truck. His goal was to see Alex punished for crimes he didn't commit, while Tom continued his killing spree unnoticed. Alex was released from custody, but the damage to his reputation had already been done. The town of Harrington was stunned by the revelation, struggling to come to terms with the fact that they had been so wrong about Alex. Rachel felt a deep sense of guilt for having doubted him, and she made it her mission to help him rebuild his life. With Rachel's help, Alex found a new job and slowly began to regain the trust of the community. He knew it would take time, but he was determined to move forward and leave the past behind. The experience had changed him, making him more resilient and determined to prove his worth. Rachel also felt the need to dig deeper into Tom Watson's background. She discovered that Tom had been suspected of a similar crime years ago in a different town, but the evidence had been inconclusive. Rachel's investigation into Tom's past revealed a pattern of behavior that had been overlooked by law enforcement for years. He had moved from town to town, leaving a trail of victims and framing others for his crimes. Rachel found old case files, newspaper clippings, and police reports that painted a chilling picture of a man who had perfected the art of manipulation and murder. The town of Harrington eventually returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the memory of the murders and the wrongful accusation of Alex Turner would linger for years to come. Detective Rachel Morgan, now a hero in the eyes of the townspeople, continued her work with renewed vigor, determined to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. In the end, justice had been served, but the scars remained. Alex's story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of jumping to conclusions and the importance of thorough investigation. It was a hard lesson for the town, but one that ultimately made them stronger and more united. As for Alex, he found peace in the simple things: a quiet evening, the company of his sister's kids, and the knowledge that he had survived one of the darkest chapters of his life. He was no longer the outsider, but a man who had faced unimaginable adversity and come out the other side, stronger and more determined than ever. Years later, the case became the subject of a true crime documentary. Journalists and filmmakers descended on Harrington to tell the story of the innocent suspect. Rachel and Alex were interviewed extensively, sharing their perspectives and experiences. The documentary brought a renewed interest in the case, and Alex's story reached a wider audience, earning him sympathy and support from people who had never met him.
Thank you for watching. Check out our channel for more CellBlock tales.